29th and 30th on a lengthening roll call of young men murdered in the course of 2021. There will again doubtless be calls for more resources for youth services. On the phone-in shows this afternoon, there will be those arguing for more vigorous police stop and search powers, while others will say we already have too many and that they are racially charged. But one aspect of the debate that's often left unexamined, the role of family and faith. Many of the gang members who stab other gang members have no visible fathers, and a gang provides the older male authority figures some of them crave. And then there is the role of organised religion. It's often the case that some of the most effective interventions on the meanest of London's streets and elsewhere come from former gang members whose lives have led them, sometimes in prison, to a deeper or new religious faith. We'll be returning to that story later in the show in the company of Ian Duncan Smith, the former Conservative leader and the man who founded the Centre for Social Justice as one way of combating what he felt were the evils of life on the streets. In the meantime, let's introduce you to Ken Hines, a youth worker and gang mediator in London, in Edmonton and Haringey as well. He's also chair of the Haringey Independent Stop and Search Monitoring Group. Ken Hines, appreciate your time today. Lengthy introduction there, but it's a story that deserves lots of attention. This 30 teenagers murdered in London this year. I think that it's awful to talk about records in this context, but I think that's worse even than 2008 now. How to react?
That is very tragic. It's disappointing. And to find ourselves back here again after what we experienced in 2008, it's as I said, it's very troubling. Personally, we're not learning lessons from the past. We continue to make the same mistakes. And the mistakes that we're making is that we need stronger deterrence with young people who are carrying weapons. Now, deterrent doesn't mean just put them into youth detention. I think we need a boot camp style detention of say 6 months, with young people being actually disciplined in a strong way, in a way to deter them from carrying knives. The other things we need to do, we also need the schools to acknowledge that they've got issues around young people carrying knives, whether it's from the influence of social media or other pressures they may have. I honestly believe that the schools are burying their head in the sand because they don't want parents to feel that their school is associated with anything to do with gangs and knives. But we need to have better education of young people to stop them from picking up or carrying knives or walking with other youngsters who may encourage them to carry knives. I also believe that the way stop and search is being done is adding to the mistrust of young people coming to the police and giving them the necessary intelligence. So therefore, I would say we need less racial profiling stop and search and more intelligence-led stop and search, because currently less than 3% each month of the stop and search carry out are tackling knife crime or weapons. And we need to see more stop and search being done for weapons, but in an intelligent and sensible way. Currently, what we do see young people complaining about is... Sorry.
Just on that specific point, intelligence-led policing, we all nod our heads, don't we, and say that makes sense. But actually, one of the practical elements of it is that you need police officers to live ideally in the area that they police. And too often in London, necessarily perhaps, a lot of police officers are commuting in from outside of the M25. They don't live in the communities. It's difficult to make police officers, live in communities that they don't want to live in. But that is a fundamental and systemic problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Personally, I think what's more important is that the police conduct themselves professionally when they're doing stop and search. Because what young people and myself have witnessed is that the police generally tend to use force when stopping and searching young people. In other words, they put them into handcuffs. They can be very violent with young people. And even though 9 out of 10 stops and search lead to no further action, but it can lead to that young person being stopped and scarred. And that's unacceptable. So.
You take that call and say thank you very much indeed. Ben Hines there, needed elsewhere. Now, the Queen's New Year's Honours List will be published today to honour those who have excelled in their field of work or community. The efforts of a British tennis star, Emma Raducanu, England's Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, and the Bond actor Daniel Craig, rumoured to be recognised in the list. Some of the NHS's 1.3 million employees also expected to be honoured in some way. Here with me in the studio, the sports agent and entrepreneur John Smith, OBE, who received his honour last year. But John, you were telling me actually you haven't physically got your hands on it yet.
No, it's an enormous privilege, and it was a very special, one of the most special moments of my life, and I thank whoever helped make that possible. I haven't physically got it because there's a backlog for COVID, but I did notice that Lewis Hamilton, who was on the same list as myself, and Barry Hearn both got theirs a week or two ago, so I figure they must be on H now. So I'm on S, so maybe February.
In the introduction there, I used the word rumoured, or somebody had written the word rumoured that I read. Rumoured to be getting, maybe I've got sepia-tinted spectacles on, but there was a period of purdah that used to be observed when you got the call, didn't you? I mean, I don't know what the instructions were that you were given, John, but don't they say, don't tell anybody, including your nearest and dearest?
Absolutely, and that's the hardest thing. I mean, I heard some 3 or 4 weeks in front of time, and it is, people say to you, what are you going to do for New Year's Eve? I mean, it happens last year. It wasn't a question on very many people's minds because we were locked down, but there was so many. We were going to have a New Year's Eve party originally and announce it that night, and unfortunately my wife and myself got very sick with COVID over Christmas, and we put a bottle of champagne in the fridge just to have for ourselves as it became public on New Year's Eve, and we opened the fridge at 5 to midnight and looked at, we were just too ill. We looked at the champagne and went, nah, it's still there actually. So.
It could come in handy, medicinally, perhaps.
Absolutely.
There's been a little bit of pick-up in the newspapers about David Beckham maybe being a recipient and the worthiness or otherwise of that. I was going to say he's almost a Marmite character increasingly. I mean, I've always been a great admirer of his.
I think he's done a great job for this country. Why not? I mean, I think possibly what might have happened is there was a PR blip from him a couple of years ago, and one of his people talked about, why haven't I got a knighthood? I mean, I don't know David that well. I haven't seen him for some years now, but I always knew him as a very lovely, warm human being. He's done so much for British sport, and he's the world I mixed in, he mixed in, and we all like David. So there's no reason why he shouldn't get whatever is appropriate for him. It's not for me to say, but it's him, people like him that represent the honours list. So I think he should, personally, I think he probably will eventually.
Yeah, we'll find out potentially if it's this year very soon indeed.
Yes, indeed.
John, thanks for coming in. Really
You're very welcome.
Thanks a lot. Join me in the next hour. We'll be reviewing the COVID restrictions after NHS chiefs signalled their belief that Omicron isn't sufficiently severe to require extra lockdown steps. But next, Dan Wootton with the best of uncancelled after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Good morning and welcome to your New Year's Eve weather forecast. Here are your headlines. Through today, it's breezy, the wind's picking up later, some brighter skies as rain fades away. Now, the weather front down towards the southeast will clear quite quickly through the morning, but this one across the central belt of Scotland will continue to deliver clouds and some outbreaks of rain, but even here we'll see the rain waning through the afternoon. Wherever you are, though, it's going to be a breezy one. So through the morning, that rain clears towards the southeast, some brighter skies, but cloud racing across the country with a keen breeze. The rain across central and southern parts of Scotland, northern England will tend to die out in situ, and drier skies for Northern Ireland, brighter moments for the far north of Scotland. But look at these temperatures through the afternoon. 9 across the far north, but elsewhere where we see that milder air coming in around 14 or 15 degrees Celsius, temperatures we normally see during April rather than at the end of December. So if you are stepping out through New Year's Eve evening, many areas will be dry. Yes, a lot of clouds, some spits and spots of rain with the clouds thick enough, particularly over the hills and mountains. And then more rain around midnight, just clips the north and the west of the country. The winds, though, will be a main feature of the weather. Gales likely across more western parts. And generally speaking, it will be, again, a mild evening and a mild night. So through New Year's Day first thing, we'll see some brighter skies, central and eastern areas of England and Scotland. This band of showery rain will just travel quite quickly across the country. So certainly through the afternoon, it will clear the shores of eastern parts of the country. And further west, we'll see some brighter skies, but it will be windy wherever you are. A real significant breeze coming up from the southwest, and temperatures typically through the afternoon, again around 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. So that's the picture through New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. Through New Year's Day, as I said, brighter skies either side of that showery rain band, and then things turn colder from the north with gales in the south on Sunday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News Home and Security Editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
As you know by now, GB News prides itself on being the home of free speech, and I think no segment demonstrates that better than Uncancelled, where Britain's top commentators are allowed to speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. You won't find hysteria here, but reasoned arguments from the likes of Great Barrington Declaration scientists Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and Dr. Martin Kuldoff, A State of Fear author Laura Dodsworth, Spectator Associate Editor Douglas Murray, and the star columnist Rod Liddle on the topics that matter most to you. The COVID scaremongering that has swept the world over the last 19 months has been relentless. From the off, governments have used behavioural science and nudge techniques to fuel our fear of the virus and thus be able to try and control our behaviour more easily. One woman who has been at the heart of exposing these tactics is Laura Dodsworth, author of the best-selling book A State of Fear, which I was interviewed for and I highly recommend.
And actually, some of the most serious accusations levelled at the government don't come from me, they come from the scientists advising the government themselves. One told me that they are stunned by the weaponisation of fear, which fed the strapline of the book. Another said that the use of fear smacks of totalitarianism. And when I pressed that point, admitted it is unethical. It would go against codes of conduct. I think that with the identification of COVID anxiety syndrome, and as we see the fallout, the impact, the collateral damage of the use of fear, it's going to become a more important public conversation. One of the disturbing elements for me in researching the book was just how deeply embedded behavioural psychology is in various departments. So people focus on Spy B, these advisors, and in fact, I'd say in a way they've almost been wrongly caricaturised as villains. Actually, behavioural psychology is fundamental to different government departments and units, and there's not a great deal of transparency about how it works. Fear is just the most destabilising and, I'd say, dangerous of the tactics that can be used to nudge people into the desired behaviour.
Well, yes, of course it is. But what's so fascinating, and Dominic Cummings has admitted this, you know, the government's fear in the early days of the pandemic is that the British people would not be terrified, that we wouldn't listen to the nudge tactics, and that in fact, after just a few weeks, we would ignore lockdown measures. So that's one of the reasons why they went so hard with all of the terrifying messaging. Why do you think that the British public actually was so susceptible to the message and actually embraced lockdowns? And the polling